You're listening to
Don't Take This Personally, a podcast about the business of creativity.
We are your hosts, wedding photographers, entrepreneurs, and friends, Cami Oliveria.
And Gabe Conover. Now let's get into it.
Let's get into it. And don't take it personally, whatever we're about to say.
Yes. Don't.
Don't. Do not take this personally.
Okay, well, hello everyone.
Hello.
Welcome back to another episode. This is a very, very, very exciting day for us.
It's a special day.
Because we have our first guest.
Something we've been so excited about.
Yes.
We have been preparing for this, but we wanted to wait like 20 episodes or so to like give you guys a reason to care.
Yeah. So that we know what we're talking about. It's not just other people validating us.
Yeah, exactly. But you can validate us.
You can also validate
us. So here we are. We are so excited for today's chit chat. Gabe, do you want to introduce her?
Yes. So I have the honor of introducing and bringing on a friend of mine who most of you probably already know. Her name's Kaley Kaczynski. Kaley from Kansas. And she is our first guest, and I couldn't imagine anyone else being our first guest.
Aww.
So hi Kaley.
Hi.
Welcome.
Hi.
We're gonna pretend like we haven't been talking for the last 40 minutes.
I know. Good to see you.
Finally, you hopped on a call with us.
Yes. I've been waiting so long.
Today, with Kaley, we are going to be talking about the importance of creating personal work. This is something that Kaley is so good at prioritizing.
If you follow her, you'll know there's nobody else that should be having this talk with us besides her.
Totally. And I think in the creative field, and Cami and I being very much business people, it's hard for us to remember to make that type of time because we get burnt out really easily, and then we're not really creating for ourselves very often. I got to do it a little bit more over like the pandemic when weddings weren't happening, but now weddings are in full force again here in California.
It's been years since I've created for myself.
Yeah.
So
Cami, come on.
I know it's an area of my business we've talked
Kaley,
about.
You're just
I'm really
give her a little slap in the face.
I know. I'm going to feel very convicted at the end of this. I can tell. But will you just introduce yourself to the people listening and give us like elevator pitch? Who are you? What are you up to? Where are you at? What does your life look like? Just simple questions like that.
Yeah.
Life story
simple.
in 2 seconds.
Super simple 2-second answer.
Of course. I'm Kaley Kaczynski, Kaley from Kansas. I am mostly a wedding and family photographer, but I also do editorial. I kind of just do all the things. I get bored with one subject. So I have been full-time for almost 4 years, but I've been shooting since like 2012, I believe.
What did you do before you were full-time?
So I worked retail as well. So I used to work for like Madewell and Anthro and all of those things.
No doubt.
I was a PacSun gal myself.
Oh, yes.
You guys are way cooler. I was at stupid Starbucks. So
Starbucks, yes. It's fine. No, I loved it for a little while. I mean, I met some great friends.
Totally.
I think it lends itself well to me being like super into styling and fashion and all of that. I think it did help a little bit with that.
Those are very inspiring retail environments.
Yeah. I'm like, I dig it. For the most part, yeah. So I finally jumped ship right before our wedding. That was international. So I just kind of said peace out like 2 months before we left for Scotland, and it was like the most amazing breath of fresh air just to be like completely done, and then go and get married and then have a honeymoon. So that was fun.
Amazing.
Don't regret that at all. So yeah, and it's been great like being full time. I wish I had jumped ship way earlier, of course, but here I am. So I do that, and I have lived in a house for 2 years. We have a mid-century in Kansas City. We have a new dog, Sully, who's a year old. So we've been like, he's basically our child, as everyone knows. Yes.
It's just the best part of life. Not human children, the dog.
Just
not
the dog.
The human one.
It's the best part of life. The dog.
Yes. Gabe's like,
so much better than babies.
No, I get it. I get both sides. It's fine.
Yeah. We do want babies though. We will have them eventually. So, we'll have to share.
You need a dog for them to grow up with. I get it.
Yeah. So he's awesome. And so right now I'm just in the thick of wedding season, as most of us are, and just trying to find time to take a breath and, go outside and enjoy myself. But yeah, I kind of dabble in everything. When I redid my site back in 2019, I made like more of an intentional effort on showing and sharing that work. So that way, if someone comes to the site and they are like a mom or a dad, or just want portraits or whatever, or want more of an editorial take on a shoot, they can just go straight to that section. They don't have to see weddings everywhere and wonder what I do. Awesome. And then I'm just getting into education in a bigger role. So I've been doing mentorships since, I want to say it was like January of 2019, but it could have been the year before. I honestly lost track. So, but I've been doing like one-on-one mentoring, virtual mentoring. When COVID hit, I kind of obviously went more into the virtual, and then that's been taking off for the last couple of years, which has been really exciting. Awesome. And so now I'm kind of wanting to do even more education, which we can get into later.
Yes.
But
how often would you say you're doing mentorships right now?
So I do at least, I'd say like 2 a month, like good minimum probably. Great. Yeah. Awesome. And they're mostly one-on-one. So they're like, we're together for like 6 hours. So we become,
awesome.
Awesome.
Yeah.
We were wondering in a previous conversation, Gabe and I were actually talking, because we both love mentor sessions, like we love doing them, but we haven't been getting as many lately. And we were wondering if there was maybe a shift away from them because of all the free education that's accessible right now. There was a time when I was booking a lot of them, and then all of a sudden they like have kind of went away, and I was like, maybe that's a COVID thing, maybe whatever, but you're still getting them a lot, which is really great, it sounds like.
Yeah cool. And some of them have been booked for,
so it's just us.
Like a while.
It's just us. No one wants us.
No.
Say that.
No, some of them have been booked for a while, granted. And then I think that just with all the education coming out, like, online, it's like people I hope they still see the value of being, with someone in person.
Right.
But
that was my mindset
totally
about workshops too. Yeah. Like I'm wondering, with all the free education out there, would another workshop be beneficial?
I think
when
people still want the community,
but they do, especially after last year.
Yeah, I think people are wanting to be together more than ever.
Dude, yeah, that's
very
true. Cool. So where are you headed? Like any aspirations for your next steps in life?
Yeah. So we could always get into that, like little education too. But as far as like things that I want to go towards, obviously doing even more editorial work would be nice, and maybe doing stuff for more publications and
less wedding work.
Yeah, a little bit less. I think I'm gonna switch. Literally, the sentence of death from everyone is like, I want to do intimate weddings and elopements. Which is great. Like, I think I'm starting to do more and more elopements, which I definitely cater to and I love, because mostly the intentionality and just the slowness of my shooting style, and just the no rules freedom aspect of it. I still encourage like my bigger weddings, like my bride and grooms, to like, or partners, to just like hone in on what makes sense for them, and they don't have to do all of these things. I've literally had these conversations the past like couple of days with people as well. But I kind of want to get into more education, but still taking on, like I take on about 20 weddings a year per, like on average, and I'll probably stay mostly in that range, but I want them to be just a little bit smaller in, guest count and everything like that. But in my 5-year plan, probably earlier than that, I would love to have a venue.
Plan.
Yeah. I want to create a venue.
Wow. Oh my gosh. You just like had a shook.
Oh,
good for you.
Do you see how low she said that?
Like,
I know.
I would just love to have
casually. Oh my gosh. That's awesome.
Everything you say is so sexy. I was like, I would just love to have a venue. Let's snuggle up.
Where's your glass of
over a glass of wine?
I know.
Let's talk
I almost
about
had
our 5-year plans.
Happy hour somewhere,
Yes.
Yeah, it could be hopefully sooner than that. But we are missing a lot here in Kansas City when it comes to venues. And I just think in general, like I have a whole plan in my head, and I want to prioritize vendors, especially photographers, obviously. And I want all of these things. And I'm hoping it works out because I mean, I have like even a name in my head that is, of course, a
Amazing.
secret, but like, I really want to make this
I'm just
happen.
kidding.
So yeah.
I always
So
Oh my gosh,
I
that's
always
awesome.
thought that photographers should start more venues because we would do a very good job.
Yes.
Such a good job.
Because there are just things
Yes.
that we're
Aesthetically,
aware
for
of
sure.
aesthetically and
Yeah.
like placement of things and
Oh my gosh.
wall colors and window placement. Like there's
Even
just,
as simple as ceremony spots.
there's just things we would be
Yes.
so much better
Oh my gosh.
suited to execute.
Yes, than just an
wow,
architect with money.
I
or
believe you're going to do that.
business
I believe it's
person.
going to be in your future and I can't wait to see
Oh
it.
my gosh, yeah,
I'm
I can't wait
excited.
too.
Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's a
I
big
feel like-
venture.
Yeah, because interior design and architecture and just like that kind of like creativity is in my, I mean, my husband and I both love it. And so I can't wait to like design. I won't run it, but I will design it and then just hire people to run it, obviously. Could never,
Amazing.
could never do that. But even
Cool.
just the idea of designing a space that could be used as a home for weddings and retreats and like shoots and
Love
stuff is like,
Hot take.
Yeah.
We're saying it right here. You're going to do this
Yes.
and we're all
Yeah.
going to get
Yes.
together in person there and
yes,
celebrate.
I would love to have a launch party. That would be so
Oh,
fun.
that'd be so
Yeah.
cool. Is
Oh,
Ben,
for
are you going to
sure.
collaborate with Ben on it or will it mostly be your thing?
I think it'll mostly be mine. Who knows
like
though?
that.
Maybe he'll like that. But I like to keep it pretty separate, you know.
Cool. Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of like
I'm the boss
biggest
in
thing,
my
I guess.
household. So
I know. Wink, wink.
I like that.
Yes. Yeah, I think I want
Cool.
to, that's kind of the biggest thing. And then my just the education kind of taking off into a new
Cool.
direction will be really nice too. But other than that, I mean, traveling, I love it so much, but I'm also like, to be honest, just completely exhausted. I've
Totally.
learned even just in the last like 6 months, it's just been so taxing. So I'm kind of more like trying my best to take on projects that are inspiring and it has nothing to do with what a couple looks like or even really just their personality. It's mostly just how much we can create together and how much it can be more of like a collaboration, even though they're paying me, I want to feel like more of their family and friend rather than like I mean, I was literally called photographer recently at a wedding and I like almost died. It was bad. I was just like, what am I doing?
Photo
What am I doing
lady.
here?
I get a lot.
You know?
Photo lady.
And it wasn't
lady.
even apparent. It wasn't even like an older guest. Which I get. Obviously they don't know who I am, but I just want it to feel everything I take on to feel really intentional. And I want to try and, you know, like we all do, we want to connect with our couples as much as possible. Of course, aesthetically, if it was, you know, up my alley, that would be a bonus. But yeah, so I will still obviously do weddings. I just want to do a little bit less and then maybe a little smaller. And then I'll still do editorials and families and all of that good stuff. Because
did COVID make you see your business differently? Like the events of the last year and a half, did that make you see, I don't know, how did that impact,
it definitely
like, the trajectory?
Yeah, I mean, I was lucky where I had quite a few reschedules, but it was nothing like, you know, you got probably both of you who shoot, you know, double or not.
We're also in California, so.
Exactly. So I feel like it did allow me to slow down even more and then kind of dream up the education portion a little bit, like to start doing that.
Nice.
And then, you know, like, I mean, I still have a wedding that was rescheduled. That's not until like October this year from last year. You know what I mean? So like, and obviously was kind of really tough conversations with couples. I mean, like really tough. And I talked to you, Gabe, about some of those things. I feel like, you know, I filled you in on a few, but like, it was tough, but I think, you know, hopefully everything's gonna, you know, shake out a little bit and everyone will get married because that's number one. I want them to like finally do it. And it still be really exciting, you know?
I had a wedding last weekend who they booked me in 2018 for 2020 and then moved from 2020 to 2021. And so that felt like a really big step forward mentally for me to just be like, man, all right, we are moving forward. Like
they did
that.
It, finally.
They did it.
Yeah.
They did
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
I was like cuddling with my dog that morning and was like, I've had these people on my books longer than I've had you. Like, that's crazy.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So it felt really good to kind of feel like we were moving forward, but
yeah,
for sure.
Wild.
Yeah.
Cool.
No,
Should we
wild.
get into the good stuff?
Yes, we should. So yeah, just a reminder, because we have been talking for a little bit now, we are going to be going over the importance of creating personal work with Kaley
so
here.
Excited to hear about this.
The queen of creating personal work. And we'll just kind of get right into it. I guess the first thing I'll ask is, how often are you creating for yourself?
Yeah. So one thing I like to do, and I try to do it at the beginning of the year, this kind of answers another question, I believe, is kind of carve out time throughout the year of when either the seasons are kind of what I like, whether it's fall or, whatever. And then try to carve out time to put a personal shoot in, whether it's like once a month, or once a quarter or something like that. So right now, I'd say right now it's a little bit slower because I am so busy with weddings, but like a few months ago during the beginning of the year, I mean, I was doing like at least one a month. And honestly, one thing I wanted to talk through when it comes to that is like, when I do mentorship one-on-ones, like I'm in charge of creating this live shoot for my mentees. So it's honestly like a win-win for me, because I do get to work with couples and families that maybe wouldn't be able to afford a session with me, especially if it's like during a time or season that's not super prevalent. Like they're not getting married, they're not engaged, they didn't just have a baby, they're not pregnant, whatever. So especially with couples, like I love style and I love styling. And I have, since I think we've been working together now for at least a year, maybe year and a half, but my stylist, Bo, she's become a really close friend. We kind of tested the waters with like a mentor. I still remember which one it was. It was on a rooftop in Kansas City. And Beth was my mentee, and I wanted to create this more editorial because I kind of felt pressured a little bit because she was a little more established as a photographer. I mean, she's local-ish. I mean, she's not anymore, but I kind of felt this urge to like create something bigger than my past live shoots, if that makes sense. So I was like, ooh, I wonder if I could try to have Bo come in and actually style it. And then it ended up like we did this like Western kind of editorial on a rooftop. And it ended up really being awesome. And Bo and I were both like, hey, like we work really well together. We have similar aesthetic. Let's continue this. And so we've since, done
Amazing.
Countless shoots together, but she's done some for mentorships and my personal too. But ultimately,
how did you find her?
So she used to assist another stylist in Kansas City named Leanna. And I had worked with her on a personal shoot. Oh my gosh, probably 3 years ago now. It was called Field of Dreams. I kind of named it then, and it was just in a field in Kansas City. But she actually modeled and styled it, which was obviously a really interesting thing to do. We learned that did not work well because she's running around trying to dress the other model, and then she's also modeling. And so I knew that she assisted her. And so she came to my apartment, my loft, to pick up some clothes, and we met. And then I could see, like, I followed her and like saw that she was doing projects in Kansas City and like her style. And then Lana was just kind of like doing all commercial work. So I'm shocked that we were even able to collaborate on that initial shoot in the field. So then I was like, ooh, maybe I could ask Bo. And then that's when we kind of hopped on that there. But going back to my first point with mentorships, it's just like, that's still considered to me like personal work because I'm teaching, but I'm also creating for me at the same time, which is honestly nice because they are investing in me, but I'm investing in them as well. And then, I'm kind of creating this like more editorial take on something that they're used to doing, like an everyday casual environment kind of thing.
For the mentee as well, to be like, if I were to do a mentor session with you and like I know how cool your work is and stuff, it would be a letdown if I showed up and it was like
want.
Or I don't know, you know what I mean? Like what a gift for them that you're like, you consider it your own work. So you are putting just as much thought as and intentionality into it as you would for your own shoot. I think that is absolutely incredible and such a gift to your mentees, and like quite a high selling point.
Yeah, it is nice. And like now I will say I pretty much do everything 110%. So like there's like, if I'm not inspired, even if it's paid or not, it's not a good thing for me. Like my mind just can't work that way. So I'm really, really prepared when I do things. We'll talk about this in a little bit of like how long it takes to plan these things and like all the different things that go into creating a shoot, even if it seems like it's simple. But also since I've done like a handful of editorials with Bo, I've since changed the structure of one-on-one mentorship. So now I have the casual option and then I have the editorial option, which the editorial option is a good amount more. Yeah.
Yep.
Because it's a lot of work.
I was going to say, and money too. Like, I'm sure you have to invest in them. So you have to be charging more. Like you're getting all of this fancy stuff and you use florals a lot. And so like, that's not just free.
And a lot of the beginning ones we did collaborate, like a true collab where it was like, hey, we want to see what it's like working with you. Here are flowers, because they liked my work. We had a mutual like of each other. But now it's like with Bo, I now pay her for editorial ones because like it's like I don't want it to be, I want her to feel validated and like taken care of. And so now it's just changed a little bit, but the casual is still great. Like I still like I have one coming up next week and I still put 110%. It's just not going to be like the styling isn't elevated, but it'll still be cool. But
and for those ones, is it typically you're finding like a couple and you're like telling them how to dress, picking the location, and that's most of the extent
so I still do work in the back end. Like I still have them send me images or bring a ton to the shoot, and I still find the landscape or the the location and coordinate the schedule and like all of that. But Bo is just not involved, and Bo and I have similar like passionate we're just really passionate beings. So like, it's so nice working with someone that will go the extra, like she is like a workhorse. I mean, she is amazing. Like I'm really weird about steaming and like all the things, like even just the simplest things, she just is like on top of it. She just sees, I don't know, we just work really well together. So it was really nice to implement her. Yeah.
Amazing.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
If you, let's say, okay, I mean, this is a terrible question, but like, let's say Bo moved somewhere else and you had to start searching for another stylist, how would you go about that?
Well, we have done this before. So like, basically like, for example, that shoot I did with Blake in the Salt Flats, with the gown from the shop there. Why am I blanking? But we also did the more editorial portion with the other model. Yes. So Bo basically shipped all those pieces to Blake's house. So I've done shoots with her where she sends everything to me. So so Steph Fisher and I are working together again in August, and she wants to do a styled motherhood session with Bo. Like she wants Bo to style it. And so Bo will end up like, sourcing like she always does. She'll send me images, videos, whatever. She tries things on for me. I mean, it's like, it's a really good way of, collaborating on things like that.
This is more thought than I've ever put into anything. Like this is impressive. I mean, she's the one that mentioned where she's like, well, I can't be on set, but I'll send you all this stuff. And she sends me a kit, like a tech kit of like double stick tape and like, I don't know, like all like the little things you don't think of. I'm going to poach her.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to plug the hell out of her for this education too. I think we're going to do like our own course, like on styling and like what to expect, because people don't ever talk about, I'm like getting into that question already, but like people don't talk about like the true relationship of vendors in like a course way, Cool. So I might do one with like our florist. I might do one with her. I might do one with like a videographer, those types of things. But
cool.
Anyway, so yeah, we could do it anywhere. Like she would just ship things to me as long as it made sense and as long as she was inspired, which most things that we work on, I mean, she definitely
Yeah, it
likes
seems
what
like
we're
you sound
doing.
like
So
the perfect partner for
Wow,
this.
so cool.
yeah,
So
it is really nice.
that's
Yeah.
amazing.
So that's kind of how that
Awesome.
works. But yeah.
Oh my gosh, I feel like I'm overflowing with questions. So, okay, first,
I love it.
let's rewind. When did you start doing these kinds of shoots in addition to your paid work? Like, why did you think to do it? Let's start there. Like, what was kind of the beginning of you starting to implement these kinds of shoots into your workflow?
So I think I've talked about it, I think one other time. So I kind of remember the exact shoot, but in January of 2018, I was asked to do there was a model in Australia that my girlfriends here know. I don't know how they know her. Actually, she's awesome, but she was going to be in town for Christmas basically. So it was like, oh, the holidays, we're all at home doing nothing, mostly. But she was like, I want to style the shoot inside of, it's called Deer Society, is the vintage shop here. It's great. They're awesome. And Maria and Chanel both own it. And I've been friends with them for years, and they wanted to do a shoot inside. Their names, right? I'm like, ooh, Chanel.
They do sound important.
I know. I'm sorry. I'm like name dropping like no one.
No, it's good.
It just helps me.
No, you're doing great. I just think they sound important.
They wanted to do a shoot inside of their shop, and I was like kind of terrified because I always work with natural light, right? And I was like, okay, well, I'm not obviously going to use flash or anything like that or lights. I told them, I was like, I mostly just work with natural light. So, I mean, their shop is beautiful, has a ton of windows. So they kind of organized everything. So they had a florist. She ended up like painting the florals, like different colors, which I wasn't used to. I was like, ooh, this is sick. And her name's Molly, the model. And she looks exactly like Kate Bosworth. I'm telling you, like literally night and day. I'll have to send you guys a picture or some photos from it. It's been in some of my slideshows and stuff. It has like the blue background, and she's blonde, super blonde. She basically had no clothes on some of the time.
Nice.
We got a little steamy. We did a shoot inside their shop, and I used like paper backdrops. And at that point, like I did not work that way. Like I never did anything studio. I always worked with outdoor light and natural light. And I just ended up really liking it. And that's the first time I think that I had incorporated florals, at least in that capacity, as far as like floor installations and like painting them and all of that. So after that, I posted a lot of them, loved them. And then I started getting like more interest as far as like, oh, you work with models. Oh, you work with paper or whatever, like any sort of backdrop. And then obviously with Bride KC, I've done all but one of their lookbooks, which has been really nice too. So like that kind of shaped me to do more bridal editorials. Cool. So that was really nice too. So I was able to shoot all of these gowns that came in that were new from all the designers, and like getting to see them firsthand was really fun. And I mean, we had done shoots for like the last like 4 or 5 years. So that mixed with like this first editorial with Molly, because they're two different things. One was bridal, one wasn't. Those kind of just really started like that, like fire as far as editorials go.
Yeah.
So that wasn't that long ago. I looked back at photos recently of like college where I was shooting like one of my best friends in kind of an editorial way.
You were saying like, best friends.
Yeah.
Sorry, no.
I was like, did someone do some college experimentation with their best friend? We've been there, right? We've all had a best friend.
It's like,
I was like, no, boy. Not that. Like, you never know.
No, I'm calling it editorial because, we were outside in like 30-degree weather, Urban Outfitters, and, it's all good. She's like, love sure, that. I'll do this for you. I'll buy you a beer later. It's fine.
Perfect.
But I mean, I've done like, that's kind of still been in my brain, like in the past, like in college, I was like, ooh, I like shooting like one subject in a fashion kind of way. And so after Molly's shoot inside Deer Society, it really definitely like sparked that creativity. And then I just kind of like started from there. That was a really long way to answer that question.
No, that's awesome.
2018.
That was exactly what I wanted.
Okay.
So then from that point, were you were you just like, I have to make this a priority to do this once a month? Or like what happened mentally that you were like, this has to be an important part of my business?
There really wasn't like a time or like how many per whatever. It was just kind of like, how can I do this again? So I did another one with Dear Society in a different location, but it was still inside and we still used paper, but we incorporated like shells and like pots and things. And we did fabric instead. We actually did crinkled paper, back in, I don't remember what year this was, which was really cool. And then, I honestly am trying to remember when I started using a ton of fabric, because obviously I just love draping fabric. I love how organic it looks. I love like all the lines and just like the shapes, and the texture you can get from fabric. So then I kind of just moved from paper to fabric.
She is, yeah.
You're like a true artist. That was like sexual to listen to.
I love you. I'm like describing someone's body. It's fine.
I'm like, I'm like
the shape.
Like, come be my best friend.
You're like, I can always use one more.
We can always use another best friend, Kaley.
I'm dying.
Oh, that's so
but yeah, I think I just started moving into that kind of thing, and
cool.
it stayed still collaborative and like personal, and then people just kind of started, like I ended up doing a motherhood session that way and a maternity session that way. And then people just kind of, you know how it goes, like they see it. I feel like people, unless they see it, they don't think it exists, which is unfortunate a lot of times. I mean, I still get asked if I would fly to like wherever. And I'm like, yep, it's me that's going to create. It's not like, just because I haven't shot at that venue doesn't mean I can't.
That's my biggest pet peeve.
I could go all day.
Pet peeve question.
Yes. I'm like, oh my God. Yeah, you're like, you've never shot. It's actually better if I haven't shot there because I'm creative.
I'm like, I actually prefer if it's a new place, because I promise you're going to get my best energy.
Right. Exactly.
I'm going to try so hard.
Like, I'm going to try so hard.
Yes, harder than I would. So I'm like,
like, I'm going to get there 3 hours early. I'm going to start an hour and a half early. I'm going to use all the spots.
Get more time. No, I feel that so much, because even just, I don't know, like them seeing like motherhood in that way, or like maternity using like a white backdrop, or like that couple session I did in my sunroom, which I'm sitting in now, with just all white on and tattoos. And like, we just used white, because I love white. I love having zero distractions when it comes to like that connection of a couple, and you're forced to kind of get that out of them and that vulnerability out. I think that's one big reason. And then also because I live in Kansas City and we have no mountains or water or desert or anything. So it's kind of shaped my whole shooting style and the way I see everything. But I also love like Yosemite and the Oregon coast. I mean, I just did that elopement on the Oregon coast and I loved it. So it's not like I'm, I don't feel like can't use a landscape or utilize it. I love it. But I think at my core is like, how can I get these two people to, see me not as a stranger, but as like someone who wants to get this out of them, to make art with them. And so I think, the personal work has really helped. And I think, again, with the mentorships, like I did a session in Montana with Jackie Vigil, and we planned the whole thing. And it was one of my favorite couple sessions still to date. It was such a story. They like drug this canoe from their cabin all the way down to the water. And I made them get all the way into this like crazy grass that had like water. She was like, oh, whatever. And they were like, they had their own vintage. It wasn't even editorial. Like they had their own clothes, but they were so stylish with vintage that it was like, it just was perfect. So, I mean, that would never have happened had Jackie not invested in me and me not gone to Montana. Like I wouldn't have made that work, Yeah. So a lot of the time it's still personal, but it is even more special because it's someone else's learning from that, Totally. But I do love personal work too. I mean, I do some that's just me, which I'll get more into because I know you guys some of the questions that I want to go over involve like the planning aspect, and even just the shoot I did for my course. Like, wow. It was like
before we move to that, how do you describe what editorial is? Like, if you're like, this is editorial versus not. Oh my God, don't laugh at me.
No, I just thought of a story.
No, I feel this question is like,
I was like, for someone who doesn't,
no, that's not what I
would describe myself that way.
I thought of a story.
It's nothing to do with you. I thought he was just over here cracking up at me for
you're such an idiot.
There are no stupid questions here. Okay, so how would you describe like this shoot is editorial versus not?
Yeah, I mainly, because I feel like there's like 100 definitions of what that means. For me, it's basically like intentionally creating more of like a visual representation of like an entire narrative, basically. Like it's more conceptual. Like, so fancy. I feel like with editorial, it's also the way that I'm like, because I don't want to say posing, but like the way that I'm kind of picturing them connecting. And that could be, again, with like the way they are, the way they're, the shapes that their bodies are making, or the way they embrace, or what they're wearing, where we're at, those kinds of things. I want it to
just
feel
more about your intention going into it, maybe.
Yeah, because like casual, it's like, I love casual. I also love that, where it's like you're just running around, frolicking around, and like you aren't worried about the styling. It could be something like where the wind's just taking your dress and I'm just getting that, which that could be more of like a softer, organic type of thing. So with editorial, it's more of like a conscious like effort and vision to make it more fashion forward, which I hate that term, but you know, like it's still, it's involving
it's like more of an art piece, maybe.
Yeah. Like less about, and it's less about the connection. It's more about like the visual, you know, like I still want to get that, but a lot of my editorials involve single models, like female models. So, I mean, I'm not going to try to get them to like cry in front of me in a like a suit or something, you know, like it's very much like, how can your body move to where it makes me I'm getting, whoa, I need to rewind. That sounded so bad. But like, how can you, you know, like, how can you like, yeah.
I'm not laughing at you.
He's probably laughing because I keep topo burping.
Hey, she keeps topo burping.
I keep topo burping. Yeah.
No, editorial is an interesting word. I've always wondered how other people describe it.
Yeah, I was really curious
of course,
about
like,
that.
In a traditional sense, it's like getting published in a magazine or like those kinds of things, which of course I would love that, but there really aren't any editorial publications. I've definitely come to find that out, unless I'm crazy. Let me know if you hear of any.
I feel like it's more of like a cinematic experience. Like it's art that makes you feel something, but it's not that you necessarily felt that while you were creating something. It.
Yes.
I don't know.
Which sometimes, which if you do, then awesome. Like that's a whole, like great. But I just think it's more intentionally conceptual and like cinematic versus
really interesting.
More carefree and like more about the couple themselves and their story rather than like, this is like, you're going to wear something unbelievable and I want you to give me whatever you feel in this dress or this like piece of clothing. I want to see that on camera, you know?
Cool.
So yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
So the reason I was laughing earlier is because my little brother just started working for me and he's doing some like Pinterest work for me and stuff. And he was like, my wife was like, so Joe, how's it going working for Gabe? And he's like, well, I've learned something new today. I've learned that anytime I see a photo of something that no one would ever do in real life, it's called an editorial.
Okay, that sounds like when we were experimenting with Victor being my assistant for a while, and I was trying to teach him things about like Pinterest and stuff. That's the kind of thing he would say.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
All right.
Oh my gosh.
So funny.
No, but you described it way more eloquently.
As a general rule, if you wouldn't do this in real life, we call it editorial.
Well, and like not every couple is going to do this specific thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
But since it is like kind of an editorial, it's like, oh yeah. And they know that going in, it's like, we're going to get weird. We're going to do random things that maybe you wouldn't do before, but typically it's with a model too. Like
Yeah.
Especially nowadays when I'm doing them, I kind of tend to just hire out actual signed models because there's literally a night and day difference of the work that you can get and like the way that they know their body and the way that they will just be down to do whatever, which is like my number one thing is like trust. So they're also getting paid. So they're like, whatever you want.
Right. So question about this specifically. So how, when you are doing this, both for your mentorships and personally, how are you going about funding this? Is it all out of your own pocket? Is it more like collab, you and whoever you're working with, maybe Bo, are both paying for it? And then I guess second question would be for your mentorships, if you do get a paid model, is that all worked into that bigger package price, the editorial price that you were talking about?
Yeah. So with mentorships with couples, I almost always have them collaborate with me. Because and if they want it, like the couples that I usually find for that, they aren't couples on Instagram that are like those couples that are like, oh, we model for literally 7,000 photographers and we should get paid, which I love. That's great. But for me, and you know this about me, Gabe, like I wouldn't want to work with them anyway because they've worked with all those people, which sounds terrible, but it's like, I want to try to find like a couple that maybe they've never been shot before, or, you know, for the editorial, like casual is like, okay, like if they've literally never seen a camera, I can make it work. With editorial, it's like, I want them to be experienced at least a little bit. So if they either have modeled before, but they're not like models, you know what I mean? Yeah. I hardly hire models for mentorships. My paid models are typically with anything personal, like for what we're going to talk about with my course. That's an example of like, or if it's a personal shoot that I want to do, I'll pay them. But typically, unless they ask, I mean, I did one in Hawaii, where they had us pay them, and that was totally fine. I am definitely willing to pay, especially if it's destination, because I feel like for example, Hawaii, they were so familiar with it. They lived there. And the mentee was like super inspired by them, as was I. And I was like, yeah, let's do it. But normally with mentorships, I typically collaborate with them. They get, of course, all of the images. I do send them a little something normally at the end of the night, as far as like dinner on me or coffee or wine or whatever, just as like another thank you. But I'm not going to sit here and say that they aren't excited to work with me. It's just like a bonus where I feel very thankful and humbled that they want to. I mean, honestly, if a photographer I loved, even right now, asked me, if like Narav came up and said, hey, can you and Ben model for this mentorship as a collaboration, I'd be like, yep. Like I will be there. So I mean, I would definitely, you know what I mean? So but for personal work, like where it's just me shooting for myself without someone getting education from me, or if it's like Bo and I, we will work it all out, more of a
So if it's for your own personal shoot, you'll just like cover the cost because you want to create it.
Oh yeah But I mean, I've had models also work with me as well. I did a shoot with Bo in my driveway in an RV that my best friend owned, and he was visiting us, and it was amazing. And she modeled for us as a collab, but she's also worked with both of us before.
Nice.
So cool. I mean, I was definitely thankful for that, because she's one of my favorites. I love her. But normally, if it's a signed model, I obviously will cover the cost. And then for the editorial mentorship, it's covering the cost of like, mostly Bo, like to like actually style, because she's also used to working on commercial shoots. So she's getting like, you know, triple the pay that I could even pay her for something like this.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But for my course, for example, I mean, it was an all-day shoot for the first one we just did, and so I paid her accordingly. Which I can get more into later.
Cool.
But
cool. Great. Yeah, I think it's just important to talk about that. You know, I don't know. There's so many people out there that are just trying to strictly collaborate with people and don't show appreciation in any sort of way, and that just I don't know, it gives you a really bad reputation. And, you know, it sounds like anytime you do collaborate, it's always extremely mutual. And so I just think it's important for people to know that they can't just take advantage.
Yeah.
Because
I did want to make another point too, is like, whenever we are collaborating, it's almost like, or whenever I'm doing personal work that I do pay for, like the course, I know that I'm going to be making money off of this course. Like, and I know that they had a hand in creating what we did. When it comes to like mentorships, it's like, it's almost just like we're all collectively creating art together and we're all inspired by the vision. Like if Bo, like, if I asked her to do something and she was like, like, that's not really my vibe, but I'll do it anyway, I would be like, oh, well, then I'll just pay you to do it because this isn't something you're comfortable with doing or whatever. Because there's like a huge difference with like creating art and then getting paid. I don't know, like if you're getting compensation later on. Obviously everyone will get credited for everything. I'm like big on crediting. So, and I've gotten people work from our collaborations 100%. Totally. Like I've gotten my florist so many weddings, or like Bo, you know,
no doubt,
which is great. Like I want that, but that's kind of also in exchange for working on like 1 or 2 projects with me for free, you know?
So no doubt.
Yeah, I definitely want people to understand, you know, I'm definitely not out there to like just do. But if you're just starting out, like if you like have never ever done a personal shoot or collaboration, like I used to seriously like I tell my mentees too, I'm like, you have friends that are pretty, you have friends that don't know they're pretty, like just get them into some space and get flowers at cost or get flowers from Trader, wherever. And like, you could do your own hair and makeup. I mean, there's ways that you can do it. And I have done that. I have worked very, So, I mean, it's taken a long time to get to a point where people even trust me enough to say yes to whatever. Like all the people I work with now, it's like, I'll tell them a date even, and they'll be like, we'll be there. Like, they don't even need to know what it is, which is amazing. But it's not like it's always been like that. You know, that we've had to go through all these shoots together and realize that we not only work together well, we create things that we all like, you know, or proud of, I guess, too. So
no doubt.
How do you think putting an emphasis on personal shoots like this has like changed your business? Like, why is it important to do?
I think it's important for sure for your own mental and creative, like your just your creativity in general. Like, I mean, I do some things in creative personal shoots where it also like manifests and then recreates itself later at a wedding, or like just the way that you see things that maybe, you know, because weddings, they're not constrictive, but they're like, you're kind of photographing what your couple has presented to you beautifully. But with personal shoots, it's like I literally have every say in every decision and every color and every flower and every piece of fabric or whatever you're creating is like all your decision. And it's so freeing to be able to like be the one calling those shots instead of a couple or a family. You know, you go to someone's house and it's like you're working with their treasures and trinkets and like things that they've collected throughout the years as a family, but it may not hit home like this thing would over here that you could create on your own. So I think just to let that like more artist in you come out, because I feel like with weddings, you obviously still consider yourself one when you're there and shooting, but it's almost a lot of it is already pre-calculated. And then you get those really amazing moments that happen that are like those in-betweens or like surprise moments by either Mother Nature or the way that the couple ends up interacting, where you're like, oh my God, this just makes me so happy and inspired. But like with personal work, the entire shoot should honestly feel that way, you know? And you're your own, you're in control of everything. And I love to be in control. Like I hate not having control, which I know that you guys have talked about. And so with personal work, it's like, and even bringing people on as a collaboration, like you want those people to understand you and the way that you see the world, because if they don't, and they're like all over the place, it can be good and it can be bad. Like you do want them to have a say in what they, what you're doing, but it's not like you're working with something that they just want to do and it doesn't,
Right.
Yeah. So I think ultimately it's great for your creative mind and like your, it'll kind of help you see the world differently because you're not forced to shoot XYZ. You're kind of like shooting what you want. And even if you get like 10 frames out of that whole shoot, it could be some of the best work you've done. And then like maybe in a wedding or another shoot that you do with a couple or whatever, you may try something that you did there and it would just come out more.
So it's like had a direct result in your client work.
Yeah. And people, and again, like clients are seeing all of these, like even just couple sessions. It's not even like the editorial, like portraits with models either. It's like they see, like, for example, the couple session in here that I was talking about with Henry and Indy, where they were in all white. I've since done like at least 2 shoots like that because people just get so excited when they see like a crisp, clean, soft take on couples sessions. But it's like, all I did was like, I had a white backdrop and had them wear all white. Granted, they were way, way connected. One of my favorite couples to shoot, but like, even if they hadn't been, it visually still would have been amazing.
Right.
And I don't think couples even know that that can be what they, because engagements, they're always like, oh, we have to go hike up this mountain and get, spun around and like, I have to straddle him. And then we have to like,
straddle him in the middle of the street.
What?
I have to straddle him.
I have to straddle him in the middle of the street.
I talk about this all the time where I'm like, if you don't normally do that, why are we doing it then? Because it makes no sense.
We've talked about that a lot recently
Love
too.
that.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't get it. So yeah. But yeah, cool. I think number 1, creativity. You can like let that release. And 2, it will 100% influence the way your clients see your work, I promise, or the way that they can see themselves in your work. I feel like, again, if you see it, you can believe it, which is such a childish, like that's what we say to, I don't know. But it's so true because people just have this like, and a lot of it is just influence from like their friends and, like, oh, my friend used this photographer, so you have to use them. Or we got engaged in this spot and it was amazing. And then they go there and it's, let's say it's like raining or something, or, I just feel like you should do what you want. And I think if you have a vision for a personal shoot, like definitely do it, but try to make it your own, obviously. If there's elements into that, can, yeah.
I think in so many ways it's, we forget that how much influence we do have as photographers and like artists, because not these people that are coming into contact with us, most of them don't, they don't know anything about photography or anything about light. And it's easy for us to forget that because we're like, oh, well, we want to make sure that like they feel comfortable and that they want to, they're doing what they want to do, but they want ideas from us. Anytime I've ever offered up an idea, it's been taken because people are like, oh, I've never even considered that, but I trust you. Yeah. They look to us as experts. That's why they hired us. That's why they pay us so much money to do this, is because they want us to create with them. And it's easy to be hesitant about that because you see that they've never done anything like that before. And you're like, oh, will they be comfortable? But if you're the one that is pushing them and teaching them how to be comfortable with this, then it will always work, which is why I loved that you said, like, when you share all this work, it's not, yes, it's bringing you work, no doubt, but it's also showing your current clients that they can do something out of the box and they can do this too. And it makes it more desirable, which is a great way.
I just had a couple I booked recently where we talked through their engagements already. I mean, we haven't booked them quite yet, but they were like, this has happened like twice in the last couple months where they're like, we just want to go wherever you feel most inspired. Like we'll go anywhere and do anything. And I'm like, it's good. And it's awesome. I would love like one little parameter of like, maybe like a type of landscape that they like.
Give me something.
I was like, I want you to like it.
I'm like, I want to make sure that you feel good. So we'll
all right, we're going
there,
to the dump.
But it's just,
I have couples who'd be like, okay.
Right.
Yeah, Stephanie just did a shoot in Stephanie Fisher at like in a dumpster.
Yeah.
So,
Yes, people like trust us so much.
they do.
Yeah.
Which is awesome. So yeah, I get that because, I think clients will see it. And then photographers again will be inspired too, which is always good. I mean, yeah. So
Good.
it's like
So
a
on
triple
that
thing.
note,
I walked into that one.
You did. Can I ask, what do you think is the difference between being inspired by something and just like copying somebody? Like how do you know, how the fuck do you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I think the biggest thing is if you have to ask yourself if you're doing it, or if you're asking yourself, ooh, does this look too much like whoever's work, then that's kind of a sign. But I also think that if you're taking more, and I think you guys have talked through this a little bit where you were like, if you take more than like 2 elements of, or 2 or 3 out of something like location, type of model, whatever, then that's kind of crappy too. I'm going to plug my computer in. Thanks, babe.
Like
but
not taking more than one element from an image you saw.
I think like 2, I mean, 1 is great. I mean, of course, like you're going to probably have something that makes, or that is represented elsewhere. But I think, if you're taking like the same subject matter and the same type of landscape, or even the exact location. I mean, we've all had even probably that happen where it's like, they went to the same location, they used the same model, they used the same concept, whatever it is. And I just think if you have to just do a gut check, that's really all you can do. I mean, and just try to be different. Like I wouldn't even want to attempt to do something that, let's say, Stephanie did, because I know that I won't do it as good as her. And I made this point in I think a random interview or something where I was like, I've heard this in the past. I don't know who said it, but they were like, if you can't do it better, then like
do something else.
I mean, like I'm not going to say don't attempt, but like, just, I don't know. I really want to do my own thing. And I hope that people can, and I know that we all hopefully do, but I think ultimately it's just a gut thing and an intuition thing. And I think that, if you're referencing their shoot or someone's shoot that's similar to, it's like, if you find yourself looking at it or looking at something similar, because of course everyone's used fabric, like duh, we all use it. I love it, whatever, but there's so many ways you can use it. And I think that as long as you're like, I think just finding one key thing that maybe you're inspired by too could be helpful for a personal shoot. Like, I want to do this upcoming shoot where we'll see how this goes after I say it. It's nothing like mind blowing. It's just, I want to shoot like kind of a light and dark aspect of bridal. So I'm going to do like when I say light and dark, I'm mostly talking about like the actual light. So I want to coincide with like sunrise versus like blue hour, but then also flip, like put skin tones in there for different models, and then use like kind of hard and soft when it comes to like the fabrication of the dresses, and then like, or structure versus more organic, like those kinds of plays. But like, there's nothing I'm really looking at. The only thing I can reference is Elizabeth Messina posted this beautiful portrait of this, this Black model. I think she might have been Nigerian, beautiful dark skin. And she's like 8 feet tall. And she was wearing like a bridal gown. And it was a black and white image. And I'm like literally obsessed. And I just love the contrast of like her skin with the white dress and like those types of things. But I would never recreate that exact, image. Because first of all, I can't find that. I'm not going to like be able to get that dress. So I think a lot of times for me, when I'm trying to step outside of my own comfort zone, I want to use styling that's vintage, because no one can ever have that item. So with the bridal that I end up doing, interesting, I'm going to do like modern versus vintage. And so I will have some modern gowns, like there are like Odalyn the Ceremony. I'm obsessed. That new Sync designer. I love Danielle Frankel. I love Shona Joy. All of these designers that are like now and like happening now. I kind of want to play with that. Danielle Frankel is
good thing we have this recorded.
Yeah.
I was like, wow.
Yes. And I know that like, I mean, I have a bride wearing one of the dresses that I would dye to shoot. So I'm not going to use that one for the editorial, but I mean, I just kind of want to play with modern and vintage. But I think if you're trying at least with the styling aspect to make it different, or like make sure that you don't touch anyone else's vision, or like just I mean, because nobody can use or recreate those looks because they're one of a kind. So I think even with the bridal, I want to do that.
What if like I did an engagement shoot in Gabe's white studio and had both people wear all white? Would you be like, that feels bad to me?
Not
like
really.
Okay.
I think if you did like the same posing and like the same.
So those are the two elements you can keep. The rest of them you cannot.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean,
No,
you know,
I get
think
it.
I'm just curious.
Totally
I'm just really curious.
Yeah. I think because I mean,
interesting.
all white is like obviously something that we can all do.
Yeah.
It's just maybe you wouldn't necessarily. I mean, from the comments, it's like people may not have understood that even could be because it wasn't an engagement shoot, it was just a couple session. But I just think people saw that and were like, whoa, like we don't have to go to this mountain or whatever, and we can have beautiful photos. It's like, so I don't want to take that away from people. I think minimalism is like in my like top of my, you know, that's something that inspires me every day. And so I'm used to just working with little to nothing when it comes to like backdrop or landscape, because I love that. But I mean, yeah, if both people were tattooed and like you wore the same kind of clothes and did the same posing and the same, like, then maybe I would be like a little bummed. But I mean, if you found a couple, and I mean, I've had this happen since, so it's like I have seen it happen with that shoot itself as a reference. But at the end of the day too, it's like, what can you do? I think just knowing like the integrity aspect too, like I know that they got inspired by me and it took it too far, and like that's on their conscience, you know what I mean? Like if they say that that's their vision,
like, the business integrity will win in the end.
Right. And that like, you know, the copycats are never the ones that are the most successful too, you know, the ones that are most successful are the innovators.
Right. And people will always be doing something else. Like once that shoot's over, like whoever you're wanting to copy is on to the next thing. So you're always going to be chasing them, and that's not cool. Like that's not good for your mental state. It's not good for your business. Like you need to find a way to like veer away. They're
always going to be one step behind too, because you're always thinking on the next project. Right. You know, you've done it already. So like, how are they ever going to get ahead? They're not. So that makes sense. We just watched people will just Cruella movie. That. Yeah.
Oh, did
Have you seen the new Cruella movie?
No.
I feel like you would love it because it's all about fashion. Yeah, it is. It's amazing. It's amazing. And like the whole like, I don't know, rivalry between Cruella and the antagonist, I guess, is exactly what you're talking about. Like someone being ahead of someone else and someone else trying to catch up.
Yeah.
And it's just so interesting to watch like who succeeds in the end, you know, because naturally, you know who succeeds. It's the one who's actually innovative. Right. And that's what you are. So
because I just thank you. Thanks. I just want people to want to be different though. Like I think that's also where the annoyance comes in, because I'm like, why would you want to do something that everyone else is doing? Because it's just not exciting anymore. Like I'm not even trying to be mean about it, but it's
it's right. Why
on
would
this
you?
note, I think a very important thing to touch on would be, how do you come up with new ideas? Like how do you source ideas? Where do you get inspiration from? Where do you start?
Yes, let's see. So I feel like this sounds so cliche and crazy, but like I do find inspiration like when I travel, and just every single day when I'm leaving, whether it's like a side of a building or like a color that I haven't seen before or that I have seen before that I want to implement. It's also like conversations with like-minded people. So like with the course, like coming up with even just what I just talked about with the bridal, that's something I'm about to start scheduling out to shoot, is this bridal editorial that will be in the course. And I'm using this florist in Springfield that we haven't worked together yet. And she's one of my friends. I was actually at her wedding a few years ago, and she's just coming into the industry, which is exciting. So again, another chance for like her and I to collaborate and see how we work together.
Hell yeah.
And when I was talking to her just on these initial ideas of like light and dark, using I want to use like a really pale, honestly, if I could find an albino model, I would be like so happy, but like a really pale model with a really dark model, and just kind of like, I want to like weave them in and out of the garments and like each other, and get that like stark contrast of like, and all of that goes back to like, even just contrast. Like I love tonal, but I also love like really dark skinned with really beautiful light pieces on, because it just makes them pop. And I think it really boils down to like showing that human being as like that subject matter is like, I can really see who they are visually if they are wearing something like that. But then of course I want to get that vulnerability out later, which, you know, is a bonus. But even like tonality, like I love white on white. I love cream and white. I love like, everyone's like, ooh, everything is blending. Is that fine? And I'm like, yep, because it'll all be so soft and creamy and beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And I just know that because I've not only like done it already, I just tend to gravitate towards like those tones. And like, I love shooting like wide open, and I just love really like, I mean, I love freckly skin. I love all of those little things. But I mean, I do get inspiration from like music and travel and old movies, and design and architecture. So like we have even some design books here that Ben and I look at, where I'm like, even just like the light fixtures that we do have that I just talked about, like the way that they're all like symmetrical all the way around. And like I mean, just like the folds of things, like it's so hard to like talk about it tangibly sometimes, where, you know, I'm like, but if during mentorships, for example, it's such a good way, because I'm like, hey, this is why I'm doing this. Or do you see the way her dress is moving? Or do you see the way his hand is gripped on her like waist? Or like, do you see this and this? And a lot of times they say no. And they're like, ooh, I love how that looks. I'm like, you just have to like, it's so hard to teach people how you see, because we're all going to see the world differently. But I think
that.
It sounds like you're very good at slowing down and noticing things.
Yes.
Which
yes,
is really
I do like to slow
interesting to listen
down.
to.
Yeah, I do love to slow down. I love to find a different perspective. Like I talk about shooting like from a child's perspective. So like getting, even if it's with another child or not, like getting on their level and seeing how they are seeing the world, whether it's with a couple or with their own family, is just like mind blowing actually when you think about it. And I love like tilting the lens up and like running with my couples. So like trying those kind of things out, where like normally we would have a couple run towards us and we would be like here and they would be coming this way, and we just stand here naturally, or, you know, like move back a little bit. I'm like, cool, I got that. That's cool. How can I elevate this more? And I will just literally have like rapid fire on and just like have it at my even chest or waist, and then go at a diagonal and run with them. So I'm only getting like her dress blowing, for example, or like their hands, or like they're holding their hands. So like, it doesn't matter if their faces aren't in it to me for every single shot. So it's the more cinematic for me, that also equals like how nature is like lending itself to what they're wearing, or just to like their hair blowing, or like all of those things are really hard to like explain. But even just changing up your perspective is like so inspiring, and it can really just like shift your whole shoot, which is something I love talking. I love perspective.
Is this stuff you go into in your course? Because it's almost like there's, as I'm listening to you talk, I got this like intense wave of like sadness almost for myself. No, let me explain. Because I was just like, is there a part to me creatively I just don't have? Like, do I not have that?
Or is it
I think you just I think you just don't
know
how to open that up, or like how to get there maybe, because I feel like we all have it. I just feel like sometimes we're stuck in this, like, you know, a lot of mentees I talk to, they have a checklist in their head, and they like are in their head too much, or they have like anxiety about what they're delivering or what they're getting. And for me, I mean, granted, I've been shooting for so long that I'm kind of just like, I'm more focused on what I'm seeing and getting rather than like, what are they expecting from me, as in even just number of images that I'm delivering. Like that means nothing to me. It's like, I don't know. I'm like, ooh, how can I get this image in like 5 ways? Like if I get them into like a base pose, because nobody's ever going to just like naturally get into this amazing, most likely, unless they're models, you know, and they work together. Yeah. But like a normal couple, it's like, yeah, I'm going to get you in something. I don't want you to be just like standing there. But then after that, it's like, you know, the music's playing, the wind's blowing. They've never been to this location before. So they're really taking it in. And I remind them like, hey, this is a new place for you. I really, truly want you to explore. Like, I don't just want this to be like, we sat in a field and that's it. I really want it to be somewhere that's new and fresh. And the landscape or lack of thereof is inspiring. But I'm like, after they get into that initial thing, it's like, I then just kind of give them that space to get to a point of either vulnerability or laughter or just being still for 5 seconds. Cause like so many of us are like, again, we're straddling each other and then we're having them get up and then we're having them run and then we're having them spin around and then we're having them try to be serious all within like 5 minutes. And I'm like, how does that work? Like, I don't understand.
So you just described such a key thing that I think I've been struggling with for a long time. Like I've been doing this full time for 8 years. So like I've been like in the trenches doing this for so long. And I'm so consumed in what I know people expect of me, down to like, if they don't see 100 images within 3 days, they're going to hate me. If they don't see 1,000 images from their wedding within 4 weeks, I will let them down. If I don't get them the checklist of 40 things that I know they expect, I'm a failure. And so I don't really allow myself to be creative. Like I'm confident that I can get the job done in a very good way. Like I know I can deliver like a predictable product and a dependable product and provide the same service over and over and over. And I think those are all my strengths. But then I feel like I'm kind of missing this like creative side to it because my brain, I'm just thinking and moving so fucking fast. Like I'm just like, we're doing this and this and this and this and tee laugh at each other's faces and then do this and this and be cool and do this and this and this, because I'm like, okay, I got to give you all the shots that I believe you expect and I got to get it done or you're going to be disappointed. And so that's really interesting. And I couldn't even start to begin to implement a different way into my client work until I start fostering it in personal work, I think.
Yeah, I think for sure, like 1,000,000%, I would do personal, but I think asking yourself, even with your paid clients, like, don't you want them to feel like, don't you want to deliver something that's maybe unexpected too? Like, you know, like I feel like, and again, they're hiring you, and I know our styles are very different, but I know that like they are hiring you because you are so good at all of those things, obviously, and that's what you're showing to the world. But it would be cool if Cami like showed this really like, I don't know, like this really moody, emotive, cinematic, like personal shoot with this couple that maybe isn't your key couple. And then maybe all these other people will be like, ooh, like she does this also, you know, like there's nothing
in the bag.
And I think all of those rules that you're talking about are definitely set from your own personal, like you. Cause I mean, we have clients that are going to be like, hey dude, like, where are my photo, or you know, like I never have anyone say like, hey, why are there only, because I have a decent average. I mean, I kind of go through like 100, I mean, I do deliver like 100 images typically with couples, or like 1 to 120, I guess. That's not even a good, like 80 to 120 would probably be a better ratio. But I never have people be like, hey, there's only 102 photos in here, where are the rest? Like I never have people complain on that sense. So maybe people do really expect that from you. And I mean, that's great. I think just doing personal would be super interesting. But I think that like, I try my best during a shoot to get, and I'm not saying that you don't do this at all. But with things like,
I probably don't. Whatever she's about to say, I probably don't.
Like with people like laughing and, you know, I really try to observe the hell out of people in general. Like I do it on the daily. I do it at the airport. I do it outside. I do it on my dog walks. Like I'm constantly observing people and like what they're doing. So when I talk to mentees, I'm like, we got to end up noticing how people are when they get out of the car. Like if Gabe and Michelle got out of their car and came up to me, which I've shot them before, but in a way different environment. But I'm like, are they touching? Are they 6 feet apart? Are they laughing? Are they like, do they look upset at each other? Like, what are they doing already that I can end up like playing off of? Like if they come out and they're laughing and they're smiling and whatever, it's like, okay, I can probably guess that they're going to be a little more playful for the shoot. If I had to just guess, obviously I have a questionnaire that I send out and I talk about like love languages and Enneagrams and all of the things that were really helpful. But I mean, if they come out and they're not even like, they don't even act like they like each other, you know, it could be more of a challenge for me. And then I kind of just accept the challenge and kind of go, because I'm an 8 on the Enneagram. So I do like a good challenge and I like challenging others. And I think that also plays a role in how I shoot, because I want to challenge my mentees. I want to challenge my subjects to like, I want to get something out of them that maybe you couldn't get out of them or Gabe couldn't get out of them. And that's also in my head. Like if I work with another couple, the only way I would really work with a couple that someone else has shot, and I mean someone in our industry that like we're all friends and well known, is if I can maybe do something with them that is so different. And again, with Gabe and Michelle, that was kind of tailored because of Evolve. But like you guys had never been in an editorial kind of environment. And I was like, this is going to be fun for me because I like this environment. But knowing that the two of you aren't used to like, I don't know, just being even in that kind of styling, let alone that kind of like environment, was a challenge. And so I like getting that out of my couples rather than like always having the same, you know, approach. So I do kind of observe initially, and then, but even for like laughing and stuff, it's normally just kind of like us having a conversation rather than me telling them, which I know we can't all help. I mean, I know some people are super awkward and you kind of like have to do that. But I always say too, is like when they look at their gallery in like 3 weeks from then or 2 weeks or whatever, when they see those images of them laughing at each other or them like doing some sort of like motion where they're laughing, it's like, are they going to remember you telling them something specific, or are they going to remember, oh, Jeff actually tripped and fell and then we laughed or something? You know, it's like, I never want them to think that I coerced all of these things to happen and that's what they remember.
And you weren't telling them to say their favorite cereal and like a sexy voice in their ear,
which you know.
Yeah, there's stuff I'm really like that trying to move away from when I'm like, man, in my shoots this year in particular, and I think this is something I spent a lot of like 2020 thinking about. Like I came into my shoots this year much different. I've just been trying to like create environments where people feel comfortable and like letting people tell their own stories. And it's more about creating an environment where they feel like they can be themselves rather than just having them do a bunch of crazy bullshit they would never do.
No, I love that.
So, yeah, I really like that. Super cool.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, and I'll say too, like going into Michelle and I, when we were going into our shoot with you, I was like super nervous because we originally were going to be with Morgan in frames, and then something happened. I don't know. And then they threw your name at us. And I was literally like, Michelle, oh my gosh, like this girl takes like really different photos from what I'm used to. Like, I swear to God, like, I don't know. I feel like I'm going to feel really weird, like being all serious and stuff. And then we got there and it was like a piece of cake. Like we felt like we did nothing. So
I loved that shoot still.
That's a testament to you though. It's a testament to that, what you're saying that you do, you really do, because you create that environment, which I feel like it's something that is very hard for people to do, or people just get in their own heads about, like you were saying, that we have, like Tammy was saying, we have this quota almost of like, this is what we're supposed to do, what we're expected to do.
I get so my fear of disappointing and letting people down will kind of overrun. It will like trump my creativity a lot. I think so. That's something. This year we're just kind of in a mode, I got to get the job done. We're shooting like 50 weddings this year. I say we, like we're a team. We have our own weddings.
We have our own 50 weddings
individually. We each have our own 50 weddings. So like, I think, you know, this year I am kind of in just a mode where I'm like, it's just do what I know how to do, deliver the product and try to enjoy my life. But in going forward, I think I now feel like it's time for me to like maybe like bring out a new side in me. Now that I don't have the energy to shoot 50 weddings a year anymore,
right.
I think it's like time for a new phase of business for me. So this conversation is extremely inspiring to me personally.
Yeah. And I think one last thing on that topic is like what I had started doing before I really got more into personal work is like at a wedding, during couple portraits, I would do what you're saying. Like, I would be like, okay, I know I want to get them running, or I want to get them walking towards me, or whatever, like all the ones that I normally get that I do love. And then I would take like 10 or 15 minutes at the end to experiment. So I think that would be a little way of getting more into that, where you're like, and even telling them, being like, hey, especially during Blue Hour, because Blue Hour is just already like a mood and a vibe on its own. And that's typically when we're done with that time frame. But even if it's like at the end of Golden Hour and you're like, hey, like we have like 10 minutes before we need to go back in. Do you guys care if I just like play around a little bit? And they'll be like, no. And then I swear to God,
a good goal.
Yeah.
Just
some
like
of
give
them were
myself
their
10
favorite.
minutes a wedding to like do something weird and try new things that with no expectation that they ever have to see them.
Exactly. And I promise you they were
with us. You did.
Yeah.
At the end of the shoot, and everyone left, and you were like, "Wait, can we like spend another 15 minutes?"
I did
and we
do
were
that.
like, duh. And then she did all this weird stuff with us, but we were we didn't care at all.
Some of those are my favorites. Yeah. Like the one of you guys laying on each other is like one of my favorites. And then the blue, like the sky ones were some of my favorites, which I know those were kind of at the end of the actual shoot, but I promise you half the time those are their favorites. I swear to God. It's like the slow shutter, or you're doing double exposure, or you're shooting into the sky, or you're having them like, lay on each other, on top of each other. Like those end up being their favorites, I promise. And then you're like, oh, cool. Then I better start doing this like all the time, or like carving out more time. But I think that's a good way to like tiptoe into that with clients. And then maybe for sure do personal work. Like I would love to see you
my
plan
wedding
something.
This weekend is for an old friend of mine from college, and I'm vowing right now, I will do something weird with them.
Yes.
And since she's my friend, I can be like, give me 10
She'll
minutes.
Be a good,
yeah.
She'll be a good first person.
Cool. I love that. What like a tangible action step. I love it.
Get it?
Yeah.
Okay, so we are already.
This is blowing my mind.
We've gone pretty long. So without making this ridiculously long, I think the last thing we should go over is, I guess, like first, tell us where everyone here listening can find you on Instagram. Because I know your Instagram is not necessarily your name. And then secondly, tell us about what you have coming up in September.
Yeah. So you can find Kaley from Kansas on Instagram, and my site is also the same, and it's on there. I'm also on Clubhouse. I'm not on it enough, but I'm there living. And then in September, I'm launching a education platform called Have Heart, and it is also on Instagram. It's got some spaces in between the Have Heart. I think 2 of them. But it's kind of, still getting there with content on it. But I'm launching a full course in September, probably mid to end September. It's not named quite yet, but it'll be kind of more about all of the core concepts that make up who I am as a photographer and an artist, and like what I'm inspired by. So I'll have different categories such as light, storytelling, perspective, composition, collaboration, all of those things. So I'll go into each and every one of those things. You'll be getting 3 to 4, at least 3 live shoots will be filmed, and you'll be able to watch all of that live, or not live, but you know what I mean? It's recorded. And then it's also going to be beautifully designed, which is a bonus. I really want the actual like experience of the education site to be really, really beautiful and visual. So Soul Twin, who did all of my branding, is going to be doing the site for the education. There'll even be a page about inspiration. So what inspires me, it'll have like, I'm hoping to even have like music and videos and all of those things. And then I did already film one shoot. That's the biggest one of the 3. So I kind of teased it a little bit on my feed, but it's an editorial with 2 female models. And we created a short film, which was super exciting. Yeah. So
I'm very
I've never
excited
done
about
Kaley.
this.
That's awesome.
I've never done a film in my life. But my best friend and I kind of, we came up with a whole narrative, and I have, it's all on Super 8, the whole film. And you'll be able to, we're actually going to have like a launch party for the film itself. So we're going to have a teaser coming up, like hopefully in the next 2 months, I'll be teasing we'll have a 30-second kind of like trailer scenario. And then the full film will be you can only see the full film in the course.
Wow.
And then, but I want to make it as, as unique and true to me as I can. So the actual
Tammy's like
shoots.
I'm like, this is like work of art plus education. I mean, this is.
I'm
amazing.
trying to make it as artful as I can because I love design so much. But the actual like live shoots are going to be pretty styled. So I know that most online education, they have live shoots, but it's typically like raw footage of like the photographer shooting, which is great. And I'll have that as well. I have another videographer who did just straight footage, but I think like the difference will be for sure is a lot of it will be like styled, more editorial. So I'll incorporate like flowers and fabric, and my stylist Bo will be pretty much involved in all of them. And I'll do a couple session, a bridal editorial, and then this initial one that we already did. And then I might have a bonus one. So we'll see.
This sounds so jam-packed and inspiring. I feel like this is exactly what I'll need at the end of the year to set myself up for like Cami the Artist 2022.
I'm hoping, I'm really hoping it's well received and like people can go all like more inspired. And
this is like nothing I've heard of before. This is very
it'll be super unique. And honestly, guys, people that are listening, like this is the Spark Nose version of what it sounds like Kaley will be doing in September. So if you enjoyed this episode, you know that you will thoroughly enjoy what she has coming out then. So cool.
Oh my gosh. And thank you so much for being our first guest. We had no idea what to expect with like how long we would talk to you, and like
we could have kept going for hours.
We could have kept going.
But, whatever.
This is already so much longer than I expected, but it was so good. I couldn't stop it.
I loved it.
Saying I was like I have an artist boner. I have a lady boner for Kaley. I'll say it.
Oh yes, I love it.
Perfect.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah,
thank
you
so
having
much,
me.
Kaley. We had a blast.
So
and I don't know. Anything else?
Cue song.
That's gonna sound so good.